Imagine for a second that I put a contract on the table in front of you.
Okay.
It's a single sheet of paper, very standard font, nothing flashy.
Right.
But the numbers on it, they're just staggering. And the terms are incredibly simple. You play basketball for 8 weeks. That's it.
8 weeks.
Less than a full college semester. You're playing a 3-on-3 format, which is, physically a lot easier than the full court game. Less running, less wear and tear.
Sure, yeah.
And in exchange, I hand you a check for over $1 million.
And just to put that number in perspective right off the bat, because context is absolutely king here, we need to look at the baseline.
Yeah, what's a normal salary here?
The standard rookie salary in the WNBA, the base salary for, let's say, a top 4 pick in 2024 is roughly $76,000.
$76,000 for a whole season.
For a full season. So this piece of paper you're talking about represents more than 10 times that annual salary for just 2 months of work.
It's life-changing money.
For almost anyone in any profession, but especially in women's sports, where the economics have historically been, let's say, restrictive. That is a lottery ticket. That is generational wealth in 8 weeks.
Exactly. It sounds like the easiest yes in the history of sports negotiations. It's change your life money. It's buy a house for your parents' money. It's the kind of offer where you don't even read the fine print. You just find a pen.
You just sign.
You just sign. But recently, that exact offer was placed in front of Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation who has been rewriting their record books. The offer came from a new startup league called Unrivaled and Caitlin Clark. She didn't make a big speech. She didn't issue a dramatic press release detailing her thought process. She just quietly turned it down.
And that silence, that refusal, is actually the loudest noise in the sports world right now. Because when you peel back the layers of our source material today, this stops being a story about money.
Not at all.
Caitlin Clark doesn't need the $1 million. Her endorsement portfolio with Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm is already in the stratosphere. This is about who was holding the checkbook.
Right, and that's where this story goes from being a standard contract negotiation to a full-blown Shakespearean drama. Because the figure tied to this offer, the man deeply involved in this new league's formation and success, is none other than Geno Auriemma.
The legendary UConn coach.
The man who arguably is the reason Caitlin Clark isn't wearing a UConn jersey today.
It really is the climax of a years-long Cold War. We aren't just looking at a player saying no to a league. We're looking at a fundamental shift in the architecture of women's sports.
My power shift.
A huge one. The source material we're analyzing today frames this as a case study in gatekeeping versus independence. It's about what happens when the old guard, represented by the UConn dynasty, fails to realize that the center of gravity has shifted away from the institutions and toward the individuals.
It's the $1 million silence. And to understand why she walked away from that cash and why the sources are calling it such a massive flex, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. We have to talk about the non-recruitment heard around the world. But first, remind us what we're actually looking at today.
We have a collection of narratives, timelines of public comments, and analysis from sports business insiders that track the relationship, or the lack thereof, between Clark and Auriemma from her high school days in Iowa up to this unrivaled negotiation.
Okay.
We're basically trying to answer one question. How did the most powerful man in the sport lose his grip on the biggest star in the sport?
So let's set the scene. We're going back a few years. Caitlin Clark is a high school phenom in West Des Moines, Iowa.
Right.
And I think for people who maybe just tuned in during the WNBA boom, it's hard to understand just how dominant UConn was. If you are a girls basketball player with generational talent, where do you dream of going? You
dream of Storrs, Connecticut. You dream of the University, Connecticut. For the last 2 decades, UConn hasn't just been a college program. It's been the standard. It's the factory.
It's everything.
It's the New York Yankees combined with Alabama football. You go there to become Diana Taurasi. You go there to become Maya Moore or Breanna Stewart. It was the peak. If you were the best, you went to play for Geno.
That was just the rule.
That was just how the universe worked.
Right. It's the Ivy League of hoops. If you get the offer, you take the offer.
Precisely. It was a conveyor belt to the Olympics. And the source makes it clear. Clark wanted that. She wasn't a rebel from day one. She grew up idolizing those players.
She had posters on her wall.
Posters of Maya Moore, yeah. It seemed automatic. She's a scoring machine. Geno Auriemma is the greatest coach ever. It's a match made in heaven. Everyone expected it.
On paper, absolutely. But this is where the story takes its first weird turn. Because usually, when you have a player like Clark, someone who is dropping 30 points a game in high school, The coaches are camping out on her front lawn.
Oh, for sure.
They are sending handwritten letters every day. But the source details the connection.
Yeah.
It just never happened.
And never happened is actually too passive. It was a specific choice. The source says Geno never personally called her.
Wait, let's pause on that. He never called her. Is that normal? Maybe he's just too busy. He's a busy guy.
In high-level recruiting, absolutely not.
No way.
The head coach is the closer. The assistants do the legwork. Sure, they scout the gyms. They talk to the parents initially.
Right.
But when you identify a whale, a top-tier talent that can change a program, the head coach makes the pitch. That personal touch is the sales pitch.
That's the whole game.
But the source notes the contact was limited to Geno's staff speaking to her AAU coach.
Yeah.
A text here, a check-in there. But the man himself, the godfather of the sport,
Nothing.
he maintained a distance.
And when pressed on this later, because obviously when she became Caitlin Clark,
Yeah.
people asked, how on earth did you miss this? How did you let the greatest scorer in NCAA history slip through your fingers? Geno's explanation was, well, it was very Geno.
It was. He said he had already committed to Paige Bueckers. Paige was the #1 recruit in the country, a phenomenal talent, and she plays the same position point guard.
Okay, so that's the basketball reason.
That's the basketball reason. Geno's logic was that he didn't want 2 dominant ball handlers in the same class. He thought it would create friction. He thought, I have my point guard, I don't need another one.
Which, playing devil's advocate, is a valid basketball strategy, isn't it? You don't want 2 quarterbacks fighting for the snap. You see that in football all the time.
Strategically, you could argue the merits of it. Sure, Paige is incredible. It's not like he picked a bust over Clark. But the source highlights a specific comment Geno made later that reveals the power dynamic at play here. It wasn't just about roster construction. When asked about the lack of communication, he suggested that if Caitlin Clark really wanted to go to UCONN, she should have called him.
Ooh, you call me. That is a power move.
It's the ultimate power move. It illustrates this king of the hill mindset. The belief was that the institution UCONN is bigger than any individual talent.
We are UCONN.
Exactly. The thinking goes, we are the prize. We have the banners. We have the rings. If you want to be part of this history, you chase us. We don't chase you.
It was a subtle but clear message. You are not our priority. You don't fit our mold enough for me to pick up the phone.
It feels like that moment in a movie where the hero gets rejected by the elite academy, and that's the fuel for the rest of the film.
It really is.
Because Clark didn't beg, she didn't chase him, she faced a fork in the road.
Yeah.
And this is where the gatekeeper theory really kicks in. Because she didn't just go to another elite school like South Carolina or Notre Dame.
No, she stayed home. She chose the University of Iowa.
Iowa.
Now, Iowa is a fine school, a Big Ten school, but in the context of women's basketball dynasties, it wasn't on the map.
Not at all.
It didn't have the banners, it didn't have the aura. It was a program that was happy to make the tournament, not one that expected to win it all.
But it offered something UConn couldn't. Or maybe wouldn't. Precisely. It offered freedom. The source puts it perfectly. Iowa offered her a chance to be the foundation, not just another puzzle piece.
Ah, that's a great way to put it.
At UConn, you fit into Geno's system. You play the UConn way. You share the ball. You run the sets. You don't take shots from the logo 30 seconds into the game.
No way. You'd be on the bench.
You be on the bench immediately. At Iowa, the system was built around her. It was a partnership based on trust, not a hierarchy based on earning your stripes.
So she goes to Iowa. She starts doing things we haven't seen before. The logo threes, shooting from 30 feet out, the no-look passes. She starts selling out arenas. Rivet games turn into home games because everyone wants to see her. She isn't just a player, she's an event. We call this the Iowa era.
And this is where the divergence happens. She built her own spotlight. She didn't need the UConn stamp of approval to validate her greatness.
That's the key.
Usually you need the stamp. You need the blue blood degree to get the job on Wall Street, right? She proved you could print your own degree.
And this is where things get really interesting regarding Geno. Because as she's rising, as she's becoming the face of college basketball, Geno isn't just ignoring it, he's reacting to it.
He has to.
But it wasn't like he was coming out and saying, she's terrible. It was more subtle. The source describes these as death by 1,000 cuts.
It's a very specific pattern of passive-aggressive behavior. The source notes that he would acknowledge her scoring, but he would constantly qualify the praise.
How so?
For example, he made a comment comparing her style of play to a kid in a driveway.
A cat in a driveway, that sounds dismissive, like she's just messing around.
It implies a lack of structure. It implies that what she's doing isn't real organized basketball. It's just playground stuff.
That wouldn't work here.
Exactly. It frames her brilliance as casual, almost accidental, rather than the result of elite preparation and skill. It's a way of saying, sure, it's fun to watch, but is it winning basketball?
Oh.
And perhaps most tellingly, the source mentions he would almost always tether any praise of Clark to a mention of Paige Bueckers.
Right, like he couldn't let Clark stand alone. Yeah, she's good, but remember Paige, the one I picked. She's the real pure player.
Exactly. It was an attempt to keep the narrative centered on his world, on his choices. He was protecting his investment.
Of course.
If Clark is better than Paige, then Geno made a mistake. If Paige is better, then Geno is a genius. So he had a vested interest in the narrative that Clark was flash and Paige was substance.
But then the dam broke. As the hype grew, the subtle digs stopped being enough. And we get to June 2024, the Dan Patrick Show. This is the moment where I think the pot boiled over. I remember seeing clips of this online. It felt different. It felt angry.
It was personal. By this point, Clark isn't just a college star. She's a rookie in the WNBA. The fever pitch is high. The Indiana fever is selling out everything. But Geno goes on national radio and attacks her fans.
Yeah, he called them delusional, right?
He went further. He called them disrespectful, unknowledgeable, and even stupid. His argument was that these new fans were crazy for thinking a rookie could come into the WNBA and be a top 4 MVP candidate immediately. He framed this wave of new interest not as a boom for the sport, but as a nuisance.
Which is wild from a business perspective. You have millions of new eyes on the game, people who have never watched a WNBA game in their lives, and the godfather of the sport is basically telling them, you're stupid, go away, you don't know ball.
It's a classic defensive mechanism. When you lose control of the narrative, you attack the people driving the new narrative.
You attack the audience.
Yes. He was trying to position himself as the voice of reason against the hype. He and Diana Taurasi, another UConn legend, had both predicted a rude awakening for Clark. They were deeply invested in the idea that she would struggle.
Why? Why would they want the most popular player to struggle? Wouldn't her success help everyone?
That's the key question. The source argues it's about validation of the old guard. If Clark walks into the league and dominates immediately, it suggests that the league isn't as hard as they say it is.
Right, it devalues their own experience.
It suggests that the system they built isn't necessary. But if she struggles, if she gets beat up, if she fails, then it proves them right.
See? I told you so.
It proves that you do need to wait your turn. It proves that the UConn way is the only way.
So let's check the receipts. They predicted a rude awakening. They said the fans were delusional for thinking she'd be top tier immediately. What actually happened?
Well, the source breaks it down beautifully. The prediction versus the result. Clark goes out there, face of the physicality. She gets blitzed, she gets face guarded, she takes hard falls, and she adjusts.
She adjusts.
She breaks the single-season assist record. She breaks the rookie scoring record. She wins Rookie of the Year almost unanimously. She makes first-team All-WNBA.
Which means she is one of the top 5 players in the world as a rookie.
Correct. And in the MVP voting.
Don't tell me.
She finished exactly 4th.
4th. The exact number Geno mocked the fans for suggesting. You think she's going to be top 4, you're delusional. And she finishes 4th.
You can't write irony that good. The very people he called stupid were mathematically, objectively correct.
Right.
The market, the voters, the stats validated the delusional fans and invalidated the greatest coach in history.
And during all of this, during the rude awakening comments, the kid in the driveway jabs the delusional fans rant. What is Clark saying? Is she firing back on Twitter? Is she doing clapback interviews? Because we see that all the time now. Kevin Durant fights with people on Twitter. Athletes defend themselves.
That is the most impressive part of this entire saga, and it's a major focus of our source material.
Yeah.
She said absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
The source calls it silent revenge. She didn't post, she didn't argue, she didn't quote tweet him with a thinking face emoji. She just went to work.
Which honestly has to be more infuriating for a critic.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the psychology of a feud.
Yeah.
A feud requires 2 people.
It takes 2 to tango.
If I insult you and you insult me back, we're engaging. I have credibility because you're responding to me. I am occupying rent in your head. But by not talking, Clark stripped Geno's comments of their power. She made it look like a one-sided argument. It made his comments look less like authoritative critique and more like insecurity.
Like an old man yelling at clouds.
In a way, yes. The gatekeeper lost the ability to decide who mattered, because the person he was trying to keep out simply walked around the gate, built their own castle, and ignored him.
She let the scoreboard do the talking.
She let the scoreboard, the box score, and the MVP ballot do the talking.
And that brings us to the climax. The castle is built, Clark is the biggest star in the world, the WNBA ratings are up 400%, and suddenly the old guard needs a favor. Let's talk about Unrivaled.
This is where the story shifts from sports drama to high-stakes business strategy. Unrivaled is a new 3-on-3 basketball league launching in the WNBA offseason.
Okay.
It was co-founded by Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, two incredible players, absolute superstars in their own right. And notably, both are UCONN alumni.
And Geno is involved.
Heavily. He's an investor, an advisor, and he was slated to be the head coach of one of the teams. It is a very UCONN-heavy operation. It feels like an extension of that dynasty we talked about earlier.
So what's the premise of the league? Why does it exist?
The premise is actually fantastic.
Yeah.
Traditionally, WNBA players have to go to Europe or China in the offseason to make money because their domestic salaries are low.
The grind is brutal.
Brutal. Unrivaled promised to pay them huge salaries to stay in Miami and play 3-on-3. It's a great idea for player welfare. They raised a lot of venture capital. They have a TV deal with TNT, but they had a problem.
Let me guess. They needed eyeballs.
They needed guaranteed eyeballs. The hard truth of women's basketball right now is that there is a massive gap between the viewership for Caitlin Clark and the viewership for everyone else.
It's chasm.
It's chasm. With her, you get 2 million viewers. Without her, maybe you get 400,000. So for this new league to hit its ad revenue targets, for it to really explode out of the gate, in 2025, there is only one human being who guarantees that success. Caitlin Clark. Without her, it's a great league for basketball purists. With her, it's a global phenomenon.
So they had to make a move.
They had to make a move. They had to get her.
And what a move it was. The pivot here is just, chef's kiss. The source points out the massive contradiction. The man who didn't recruit her because she didn't call him.
Right.
The man who called her fans stupid. The man who downplayed her success at every turn is now part of a group begging her to join.
And they didn't just ask nicely, they put a number on it. Reports confirmed the offer was essentially a name your price deal, but the floor was over $1 million. Plus equity in the league.
For 8 weeks of work.
For 8 weeks of work.
Again, just to hammer this home, she makes $76,000 to play 40 grueling WNBA games. They offered her $1 million to play a fun, loose 3-on-3 tournament for 2 months. It is absurd money.
It is swallow your pride money.
It really is.
But the source frames this fascinatingly. They argue that this offer wasn't an opportunity for Clark, it was a lifeline for Geno and the league.
A lifeline.
It was an attempt to attach themselves to her brand. If they could get her in the league, under their umbrella, they regain some control of the narrative. See? She's part of our ecosystem now. We are all one big happy family. It would blur the lines between the old guard and the new wave.
It's like the popular kids who ignored you in freshman year suddenly inviting you to their party senior year because you just won the lottery.
That is a perfect analogy. They wanted to bask in the glow. And everyone was watching to see what she would do. Would she take the money?
I mean, who turns down $1 million?
Even if you're rich, $1 million is $1 million.
And there's the exhaustion factor, right? She had played non-stop from the college season straight into the WNBA.
Right. She was tired. But the money, surely the money would talk.
But Caitlin Clark doesn't let money talk for her?
She turned it down.
And again, no big statement. No, I'm not playing for you because you were mean to me.
Nothing. Just, no thank you. I'm going to play golf and rest.
And that no was a calculated flex.
The ultimate flex. The source argues this was the moment the foundation was pulled out from under the old authority figures. By saying no, she proved 2 things.
Okay.
1, financially, she is untouchable. Her endorsements with Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, Wilson. She is a corporation unto herself.
She's an enterprise.
She makes more from one Instagram post than most players make in a season. She doesn't need their million.
And 2.
2, she doesn't need to do a favor for the people who doubted her. She doesn't need their platform. She brings her own platform.
She is the platform.
If she decides to live stream herself playing horse in her driveway, she'd probably get more viewers than the league would without her.
That's savage. But true. It effectively killed the buzz for the league in the short term, right? Like, people are still excited, but without Clark, it's a different conversation.
Completely different. The TV executives at TNT were probably sweating bullets, and it cemented the power shift. Usually the league or the coach holds the leverage. Do what we say or you don't get paid. Do what we say or you don't get exposure. Clark demonstrated that she brings her own leverage. She brings her own economy. She didn't need the unrivaled check. And by rejecting it, she denied Geno the one thing he really wanted, relevance in her story.
That's deep. He wanted to be a character in her movie, and she cut him from the cast.
Exactly. He is now a footnote in her rise, rather than the architect of it.
Yeah.
And for a control freak, which all great coaches are, that has to be devastating.
So let's zoom out. We've unpacked the history, the insults, the silent revenge, and the rejected check. What does this all mean? Why is this story bigger than just basketball? Because our mission statement at the beginning was that this is about a shift in gatekeeping.
It's the death of the gatekeeper model. For decades, in almost every industry, music, Hollywood, sports, there were specific hubs.
The establishment.
If you wanted to be a pop star, you had to go through a few specific record labels. If you wanted to be a tech giant, you went to Silicon Valley. In women's basketball, that hub was UCONN.
Right.
If the King Geno didn't bless you, didn't recruit you, didn't mold you, you were seen as second tier.
You were the underdog. You were fighting uphill.
Right. But Clark proved you can bypass the system entirely. You can go to Iowa. You can play your own style. You can build your own fan base using social media and highlight reels. You can force the world to pay attention to you, not because you have the correct pedigree, but because you are undeniable.
It's about ownership of the narrative, too. The source mentioned that recently Geno tried to claim the current WNBA boom was built by his generation and his groundwork.
Which is a common sentiment from the old guard. We built the house you're living in. And look, we have to be fair. There is truth to that.
Of course.
The WNBA stands on the shoulders of giants. Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, Diana Taurasi, they kept the league alive when nobody was watching. Geno Auriemma's UConn teams set a standard of excellence that raised the bar for everyone. But the source contrasts that historical truth with the reality of the current momentum. This specific surge, the sold-out arenas in Indiana on a Tuesday night, the TV ratings beating the NBA playoffs. That isn't because of the groundwork laid in 2004. That is because of Caitlin Clark. She didn't ride the wave, she created the wave. And for the old guard to try to take credit for a wave, they actually tried to dampen. That rings hollow to the new fans.
And that has to be terrifying for executives and coaches who are used to being in charge.
It is a warning. The source argues this is a direct message to every person in power. The future of player power isn't just about unions and collective bargaining agreements. It's about the fact that players now bring their own fans. They bring their own media empires. They don't need permission.
And money alone can't buy back influence. That's the lesson of the unrivaled offer. You can't disrespect someone for 4 years, undermine their achievements, call their supporters stupid, and then expect a check to fix it.
Respect is a currency that accumulates over time. You can't print it at the last second. Geno spent 4 years devaluing her stock, only to try and buy in when the price was at its peak. And he found out the market was closed.
It's a harsh lesson. Relationships matter. How you treat people on the way up matters, because you might need them on the way down. Or in this case, you might need them to save your business model.
Perfectly put. It's a business lesson as much as a sports lesson.
So we've gone from a missed phone call during recruitment to a kid in a driveway comment to a delusional fan rant, all the way to a rejected $1 million contract. It really is a masterclass in how to handle a feud without ever really engaging in it.
It is. And the core theme here, as we wrap up, is that revenge didn't look like rage. It didn't look like a press conference explosion. It looked like success.
And it looked like silence.
Exactly.
Which brings us to a thought I want to leave our listeners with. We've spent this whole time talking about Geno Auriemma, arguably the most powerful figure in the history of the sport, completely misreading the room.
Completely.
He bet against the future and he lost.
He did. He bet on the status quo, and the status quo evaporated.
So here's the question. If Geno Auriemma can get it this wrong, if he can lose his grip on the narrative this badly, who else is doing it right now? Who else in the sports world or business world is underestimating the next generation because they don't fit the mold?
That's the scary question. The game has moved on. The question is, who is next to be left behind?
Something to chew on. Thanks for today.
Always a pleasure.